When you're in winter's favorite town, the snow-covered mountains surround you. A historic Main Street charms you. And every day brings a new adventure. Welcome to Park City, Utah. Naturally, winter's favorite town. Join the experience at visitparkcity.com.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of employee ownership and all the ways you can break free from that term coming to you that is like poison to your ears called, "That's not my job." You ever hear that? Do any of your direct reports ever say, "Hey, you asked me to do something, that's not my job"? That mentality often finds its roots, and I always have to break this kind of news to you, but it all comes from management and leadership. It's not the employee, it's you. It's your practices rather than it being the employee. So let's talk about why it's you. More importantly, let me give you some ideas as to why you may be creating this "it's not my job" mentality. And even more important than that, I'll offer some ways for you to improve it, to change it, to get that out of the vocabulary of your direct reports. So let me get started. Let's all understand that leaders, managers moving to leaders, you play a pivotal role in setting the tone and shaping the culture within the organization. I know it's painful and it's hard to accept that everything that goes well is likely your fault. And that's great. But also, we've got to accept the downside of that. When things aren't going very well, when you have this kind of "it's not my job" mentality, it's likely coming from you. Your employees feel disconnected from you, their roles. They may be unsure of expectations, or they perceive that their contributions are not valued, not feeling appreciated. All these things combined lead to a reluctance to go beyond just their job description. Effective leadership, on the other hand, involves clear communication of roles and responsibilities, providing adequate resources, and fostering an environment where employees feel motivated and empowered to take ownership of their work. And it's the responsibility of you as a leader to create that culture, one that encourages collaboration. Now we're starting getting into a key word, collaboration, and recognize each individual and team's efforts. That's where so many people fall short, is that recognition part. I find it constantly. I talk about it constantly. And you can fix this "it's not my job" mentality at zero cost. It just takes a change in mindset and leadership approach by you. And if you address these management and leadership aspects that I'm going to share with you later, you, your organization, can actively work to eliminate the "it's not my job" mentality and cultivate a workplace where employees are eager to contribute their best. Teamwork. Teamwork is the backbone of any successful organization. When all elements within a greater team work together, mutual support and collaboration, that drives success. It helps you achieve your mission, your goals. However, this toxic attitude undermines this unity, this "not my job" mentality is very destructive to that kind of team operating within your organization. And in today's podcast, we'll explore the critical concept of employee ownership and dive into the root causes and offer you solutions so you can wipe this situation out permanently. Now, some of this may be obvious, but I'm going to talk about the importance of employee ownership. And I've worked for companies that had this mentality, and I've worked for companies who did not have this mentality. And I worked very hard as a leader within that organization to get there, and I almost always did. Because what I'm going to share with you are the things that I did in my leadership role, and I've seen other fantastic, successful leaders utilize the same approaches. And they're very simple, but it changes the game in a way that you just won't believe. But it's very simple. You've got to change to get them to change. And I'm going to tell you what you need to do differently. So let's talk about this concept of employee ownership, where individuals take personal responsibility for their roles, that they support their team members. They're very supportive and proud of the organization. They would recommend your company to anybody as a great place to go and work. And when you've got the culture where employees genuinely own their jobs, they constantly go above and beyond their job descriptions. They'll do just about anything to help out. They'll proactively contribute to the team's success. And they feel a deep sense of accountability for the organization's goals, which are your goals. And let's talk about that concept I frequently talk about, which is they don't work for the company, they work for you. Their performance is based on your performance. Let that sink in for a sec. You determine what mindset they have. You're contributing to one or the other. But let me tell you, I know you want your employees to own their jobs. And when you have that ownership, it's absolutely instrumental in fostering a culture of collaboration and achieving all of your goals. But what are you not doing, or what are you actively doing that you don't realize that you're doing that creates the "not my job" attitude, this roadblock to growth and complete success? I'm going to give you the ones that I find most common when we start digging into this situation. Lack of clarity. Employees often report to me as I start digging in. One of the things I often do when I'm working with a client is I'll start by talking with a lot of employees. And the fact that I'm a third-party friendly guy, they don't see me as any kind of threat. They become very honest with me. They see me often as a place to vent and to share their frustrations And this is one of the very common frustrations I come across, is a lack of clarity. See, they adopt this "it's not my job" mentality. They don't own their job when there is a misunderstanding or unclear set of rules or expectations and responsibilities. Their roles, their responsibilities, the goals are not clearly defined. And when there's any kind of ambiguity about who's responsible for what, employees are likely to disengage or refuse tasks. I'll let somebody else do it. It's somebody else's job. Because in this lack of clarity, constant clarity, this has got to be a mainstream, day in and day out, positive approach to how you're leading your team. Because with a lack of roles, responsibilities, clarity, missions, what you expect of them, when there's that ambiguity, they just refuse tasks that fall outside of their perceived scope of work. In Gallup's Q12, 12 questions to determine the level of employee engagement that they do for thousands and thousands of companies with millions and millions of employees. The very first question and they'll tell you the single most important question. They start with it because it's the foundation of engagement is, at work, I know what's expected of me. And it sounds, duh. I tell people what to do, they go do it. If you've got the "it's not my job" mentality somewhere in your organization, may not be everywhere, maybe just a handful or a couple or even one employee, there's some lack of clarity generally in place. Also, second thing I find is they have a fear of overload. Some employees fear that taking on additional tasks or responsibilities will lead to unsustainable workloads. And this fear can cause them to reject requests for help, even if they have the capacity to assist. That's often coupled with a lack of clarity, because what many managers do is they ask somebody else to do something. In the direct report that they asked to take on additional role, they're thinking, I already work 40 hours a week. How am I going to get this done? Am I going to have to work on Saturdays? I'm not doing that. See, the lack of clarity coupled with this fear of overload is you're not clear with your expectations. I need you to do this because we're going to delay that, or don't worry about taking care of this. I need you to take care of that. That's those missing little steps in clarity that's holding your team back, holding you back. Other thing too is the incentive structure. In many organizations, the incentive structure is misaligned with teamwork and collaboration. And if you've got any kind of bonus reward system where employees are primarily rewarded for individual achievements or very narrowly defined job tasks, they may be less inclined to help their colleagues. Maybe a lack of trust. I find this very often. A lack of trust among team members absolutely breed the "that's not my job" mentality. See, when employees don't trust each other, their colleagues, their peers, or you, reciprocate, help, or even acknowledge their contributions, If they don't see that you notice and appreciate any additional work they do, why do it? They don't trust that you appreciate it because you're not showing this appreciation. And the last one I find very common is organizational culture. Pretty broad scope there, but it plays a role, plays a very important role in shaping your employees' attitudes. And if you can create, even on your team, your direct reports, a culture that prioritizes teamwork and collaboration, and I'm going to tell you in a minute how to do all this. But when you have that culture of teamwork and collaboration and recognizing employees and recognizing the team for going the extra mile, it is much more likely to encourage employee ownership. So let's talk a little bit more about understanding what the problem is, what's causing. And I want to go back to that unsupportive organization culture for a second amongst their peers. If you got a problem employee on your team and you're not dealing with them, if you got somebody that does far less than anybody else on the team and you're living with it, you're not dealing with it, you're not changing it, you're not writing them up, you're not developing them, you're not setting expectations and having them achieve those expectations, or flat out getting rid of them, that's a lot of where this comes from, because your team members are waiting on you to do something about it. So be careful with that. So now let's talk about some consequences. The attitude of "it's not my job" can have some very adverse consequences. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking about it. Let's talk about what some of those consequences are that you know about. There's missed opportunities. You're missing out not only on getting more things done, but you're missing out on innovation. You're missing out on problem solving. Those are opportunities, small opportunities that happen all day, every day. Finding better ways to do things. I talked about Gallup and engagement and this, "it's not my job," because they're not sure what's expected of them and they're not working in a culture that breeds and rewards teamwork, collaboration. In the absence of that, it creates disengagement. And it creates this detachment between the employee and you, and certainly the organization. I harped a little bit on team dynamics. If they can't trust each other, if they don't have 100% trust in everybody on their team, that falls on you again. You've got to make sure everybody is able and willing to pull their weight. If you've got somebody that is underperforming, it will bring down your top performer. Deal with your problem employees. Reward your top performers. Make sure they know that about all this extra contribution, this extra workload that they're carrying. And it's just as a conversation. Maybe a little bigger bump in their annual pay raise. But if you're constantly rewarding the behaviors you seek, you're going to get those behaviors. That often is where it comes off the rails, is a lack of recognition. And when you've got this "it's not my job" mentality, not only is your organization not growing, you're not growing. Your team's not growing. And in a world that is rapidly changing, the landscape is constantly in a flux. You really must have this collaborative culture to be completely successful, to maximize your opportunities. So how do I break free from this? How do I get my employees to take ownership? Well, I've talked to you a little bit about this already, but it's recognizing the problem, understanding the consequences, and acknowledging that this "it's not my job" mentality is detrimental to you and your organization's success. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're ready to do something about it, let's do it. Let's start taking the steps to erase this from any part of your culture, from any of your direct reports, from any of your employees, team members. Let's talk about clarifying roles and expectations, job descriptions, onboarding, daily stand-up meetings, weekly team meetings, stopping after asking someone to do something for you, not telling them to do something, asking. Yeah, that's such a, I want to just pause there a second. Do you ask or tell people to do things? Think about that. But when you're asking people to do something, do they understand why? Are you talking it through with them as to how their day is going to get restructured, or their week or their job role is going to get restructured in order to allow for this extra capacity of your ask? They need clarification. They likely will not figure it out on their own. You two need to talk about it. And please don't make the mistake of asking somebody to do something that's on top of their current role and then say, "Do you have any questions?" It's the worst thing you can say, because 90% of the time, the response they give you is no. But they got questions, they've got concerns, they've got doubts. And so this is where you need to collaborate and truly clarify your expectations and roles, what's expected of them. Talk it through. What are their concerns? Ask an open-ended questions. Work on their critical thinking skills. Work on your critical thinking skills. Who, what, where, when, how, when. Ask open-ended questions, and you're going to get a discussion going. You're going to get more honesty out of them. You're going to draw out their fears, their concerns, their questions. That's how you clarify roles. And here's my last hot tip. At the end of the conversation, towards the end of the conversation, ask them, okay, what did we just decide here? Have them repeat to you what you just agreed to, so that you make sure 100% they repeat back to you exactly what in your mind is what you're expecting of them. Have them repeat it to you. What are we deciding on here? And I'll bet you the vast majority of the time, they're going to leave something out, if not half of it out, because they're processing information slower than you're giving it to them. And they're going to miss some things. Their mind's going to be wandering off to execution and thinking things and how am I going to handle this? They're thinking about their strategy to this. They may have shut down their listening. So this, please repeat to me what we agreed to today, is essential for you to clarify roles and expectations. Get on the same page with them, or you're going to be disappointed. And your disappointment is their disappointment. I'll move on. Let's talk about incentives. And when I say incentives, it's not always necessarily compensation. It's primarily recognition. So recognize your employees in compensation programs, and we can talk about that if you want to. But the simple, zero cost, easiest thing to do is recognize them. Recognize employees who support their colleagues, that go above and beyond the job description. Reward the behaviors you seek. Catch them doing it right. You are not allowed to miss it. You've got to be looking for it. You got to get off your butt and manage by walking around. And don't be walking around looking for everything that's wrong. That's our tendency. And that's the mindset around incentives that you really need to consider working on and embracing. So let me spend more time catching people doing it right than constantly looking for what's wrong. Yes, you've got to point out when major mistakes are being made, but you've got to balance that. Actually, I have to overbalance that with more rewards than criticisms. Think about that. That is often the reason why your teams don't feel like it's their job. And then when you do that, you're fostering trust. Again, they work for you, not for the company. Their success is your success. You're only as good as they are. And if you want a collaborative, trusting team, invest in trust building initiatives. Open up your communication. Create some team building activities. Get to know them, understand their goals. What do they want out of life? Build solid professional, personal relationships. Get to know them a little bit. Let them get to know you a little bit. But most importantly, treat them fairly. Explain things clearly. Reward them when they're doing things right. Don't be a nag. Don't be a micromanager. A lot of you aren't. But a lot of you can all work on catching them doing it right. Because if you want to, it's not my job mentality, it's going to be up to you. You've got to lead by example. Your leadership sets the tone. And you need to pitch in. If you want them to do more, you need to do more. Lead from the front. Leaders should actively participate in any cross-functional collaboration. You need to be in the middle of it. And you need to demonstrate the commitment and the support to a team effort. You've got to jump in there. You must be the best of the best in recognition. Catch them doing it right. And tell them you see it. I've got lots of examples where leaders set the tone. But I got to tell you that the best leaders, and you've seen this in your own experiences, but when my team members are starting to get a little backed up, the leaders jump in and help them out. When they want to create a team mentality, they're in the middle working as hard as the team members to get things done. That doesn't become your full-time job, certainly not. But you do it long enough for them to see you doing it and setting the example, and they know it's not your job, and they so appreciate it. That's where some of this trust and respect comes from. Jump in there, help them out. You need to display the same behavior you expect out of them. So how do I create an ownership culture? It's a systematic approach I'm going to share with you right now. First thing, first tool, training and education. Provide your team regular training, regular communication, regular collaboration. Make your meetings open. Ask people's opinions, get their input, get their experiences, recognize them together. Make sure they have the tools and materials they need to do their job right. When you say you're going to do something, do it. But training and education is key to this. Now, what do I train them on? They know how to do their jobs. Let's talk about some team building workshops. You can go on YouTube. You can buy a book on Amazon. You can listen to another podcast on what these workshops look like, but create a session once a month, once a quarter that focuses on trust building, focuses on improving communication, focuses on strengthening relationships. One of the best practices we had back in my old days of corporate executiveship is we would start every meeting with, what good happened to you last week? What was your best from last week? Start with something positive. If it's a quarterly meeting, we always did something to, what was your favorite movie? What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish? What's your favorite candy? What's the best trip you've ever been on? What's one secret about you that nobody in here knows? So simple, isn't it? And you'll be shocked at the responses you'll get out of asking those kind of questions. They start talking to each other. They start getting to know each other. They joke and play around with each other. Team building workshops also are problem solving workshops. Give them problem solving exercises. Get some case studies. Present it to them. Let them work through as a group how to solve it. Do that on a regular basis and you get them used. That's team building workshops. That's training. That's education. That's one aspect to it. Then provide your team with effective communication training, because that's the cornerstone of successful teamwork. Train them on active listening, nonverbal communication, conflict resolution, role play, which was last week's podcast. Do some simulations, have them role play it. These kind of practices build teamwork. It builds relationships. And I mentioned conflict resolution workshops. If you don't know how, at a very high level, how to resolve conflict, you need to get yourself trained. You can then take what you learned from your training and build a workshop around that. There's reams of information you can use to support you in having this workshop, or you can hire somebody if you're in that kind of company. But conflict is inevitable with any team. And in fact, some experts will say that when there is healthy disagreement within a team, that's great. We're getting it all out there. We don't fight with each other. We're not disrespectful of each other, but we're disagreeing with each other, and that's okay. Allow for some disagreement. But you need to teach employees how to address conflicts or disagreement constructively, and then work through who, what, when, where, how, when, critical thinking to find a mutually beneficial solution. Compromise, collaboration, agreeing on what we're going to go do. And again, role playing is the best way to get your folks comfortable with that. Have them practice conflict resolution techniques. And of course, cross-functional training. If you make that part of your organization starting today, that you include in your, not only your job description, but your onboarding conversation, you have listened to that podcast, I hope. And if you've listened to that podcast, how to set employees up for success, you can get an onboarding checklist from there, download that. But you're going to have a conversation day one with your new employees, and you're going to talk about every job is everybody's job. And I'm going to be asking you to do things outside of your normal day-to-day duties from time to time. That's how we operate. Set the tone. Let your team know, starting day, we're going to start working on cross-functional training. We're going to learn each other's jobs. So if somebody goes down, somebody else knows how to do the job. Work just doesn't stop. And just start it. Every journey begins with the first step. How about goal setting meetings? When you're setting goals, that's generally arbitrarily set, either given to you or you give it to them. Let them be part of goal setting. When you get your goal, collaborate with your team. Okay, here's our goal this month. Let's talk about how we're going to get there. Open up the dialogue. Most managers give their people the goal, the expectation, and you do have goals. Please, God, tell me you have goals. Whether it's KPIs, productivity goals, accounts receivable goals, sales goals, whatever the goals are, what gets measured gets improved. Make sure your team has goals, and more importantly, include them in the how we're going to achieve that goal. Include them in that. That gives them ownership, because what they tell you they're going to do during that interaction, you're not telling them, they're telling you. Are you more likely to follow through and do something that you told somebody else to do, or what somebody else told you to do? Rhetorical question. This helps them share. This helps them create this sense of purpose and team, that they had some say in things. When they have a little say, their opinions listened to, often acted upon, you create ownership. That's up to you. It's all on you. Are you giving regular feedback to your team? Feedback and performance evaluations are essential. And if you're sitting down, as I propose, we're a 30-minute feedback session every single month with every direct report, and have a good, constructive, and balanced dialogue with each employee. Dialogue means two-way conversation, right? Make sure you're asking open-ended questions, asking them what they felt like they did, ask them what they feel like they can work on, how they're going to go work on that. What are they going to change? What can they do differently to contribute? Include that in your monthly sit-downs, one-on-ones. Problem solving and decision-making, workshops. Yes, there are such things. Equip your team with problem-solving techniques. Equip them with decision-making frameworks. If you listen to my podcast, go find my podcast on critical thinking for your leadership. There's a critical thinking infographic in there that you can download. You can then build upon a team workshop on decision-making, critical thinking, and then give them some scenarios again to collaboratively make decisions, or You can, and during your meetings, when you got a problem, don't just put it on yourself to solve. Bring your team in. Here's the problem. What do y'all think we can do to fix this? Involve them, collaborate with them. Yes, it takes longer, but if you want to get rid of the "it's not my job" mentality, you got to do it. Have them be part of the solution. Don't just tell them what you feel like they need to do, because if you do that as a constant diet, you're telling them what to do all the time. They have no input along the way. They're less likely to own their job. Include them in the decision making. And then as you think about these training sessions, I talk very broadly about them. You'll have to be creative of how you tailor these sessions to your specific needs, your goals, your team. It could be workshops, it could be TED Talks, it could be online courses, combination of all of those. It could be you leading it. You can hire somebody to come in and lead it. HR maybe can lead it. I don't know. There's a million ways, but think about it. These workshops are really important. And then continuous feedback. Establish a feedback loop where employees can express concerns, share ideas, provide input, and then act on their feedback. So as soon as I said continuous feedback, I bet many of you said, yeah, I got to give them more feedback. No, have them give you feedback. That's how you create ownership. Allow for a culture where they're giving you, their boss, continuous feedback. Now, a lot of you are going to dismiss that out of the box because it's just going to turn into a bitch session. Would you not rather they be bitching to you than to each other? Shouldn't you know what they're complaining about? And then if there's something you can do about it, do something about it. And if there's some reason why you can't do it, that you get down with them and help them understand why it is the way it is. But be concerned with their concerns. But if I don't know what their concerns are, how am I going to deal with that? You got to give your employees a platform to express concerns. Share ideas. Many of them have a better way. I can tell you, Tom Folliard, CEO of CarMax, every time we did a town hall, stood in front of a 75, 100 employees. He was very brave. And he said, okay, what are we doing that's stupid? He asked every group of employees that. What are we doing that's stupid? And everybody would look away, look at their shoes and chuckle a little bit. I can't believe he just asked us that question. And he said, no, one of you did something today that every time you do it, say, why the hell do we do this? This is so stupid. I can't fix it unless you tell me about it. And he's a pretty funny guy. He's one of the funniest guys I ever knew. Very good, but very funny. Had a great sense of humor. Very often, I'd be standing next to him at these town halls. Someone would bring something up. Tom, why do we do this? And he says, I don't know. Vaughn, why do we do this? He'd always turn it over to me. I'd have to answer the question, which was fun. But he also knew that when he drugged me into it, we were collaborating, and it was going to be up to me to deliver the solution or to deliver the next steps, to fix it. We came up with great ideas that way. We recognized a lot of things we were doing that were really stupid, but the only way we would have ever found out is if we asked. That's that continuous feedback. And you have to do it regularly, but you also have to follow through with it. Keep them informed, keep them in the loop, continuous feedback. And when you're doing that on a regular basis, man, do they value that. That will drive a very positive change in your team. because now you're joining with them in committing to improvement. And not only does that improve engagement, it has a dramatic influence on ownership. You have to be brave to do it, but man, I think you want to do it. And then recognition. Talked about it. I'm going to talk about it again. I have a recognition program. This plays such a pivotal role, a real thought out, impactful, heartfelt recognition program. And that can span from just patting people on the back every now and then, said, my God, I'm so glad you're on my team. So you're doing such a great job, to employee of the month. It could be very formal, it could be very informal. But especially when you've got somebody that's going to be above and beyond their job description, you've got to recognize this. And when you have a good set, an effective set of employee recognition programs in place that not only boosts morale and job satisfaction, it creates ownership. And this recognition is going to work in a couple different ways. Could be individual recognition, could be team recognition. I talked about recognition a few podcasts back, but I can tell you, I'm going to tell you how committed I was as a leader to recognition. I got up every day for 8 years, early in the morning. I got the numbers. How did the stores do the day before? Who was the top salesperson? Who was the top this? Who was best at it? I had a store of the day. I had a store of the week. I had a store of the month. Anytime anybody had some significant milestone in their day, I recognized them. I wrote a recognition newsletter every friggin' day of the week, 7 days a week, 362 days a year. We were closed 3. And I didn't miss a damn day. Not a day. I wrote it on my vacation. I wrote it when I was sick. I wrote it after I got out of surgery. I sometimes delegated it, but it went out every damn day. We recognized in my region people who went above and beyond or had some significant achievement. That's how committed I was. And I think it was essential to how well our team performed, way above the rest of the companies, month in and month out. 7 years straight, beat every other region in year-over-year sales improvement. 7 years straight was just one of the byproducts of my commitment to recognizing their hard work. So I'm going to give you a few ideas of recognition programs. There's the employee of the month, there's the employee of the quarter, there's the employee of the year. Use a nomination, a selection process. It can't be a popularity contest, but give them something tangible. Give them a certificate, create a plaque, have a trophy, special parking space, maybe a small monetary reward, but that's optional. But have the employee of the month. And then you should also build in a peer recognition program, a program that encourages employees to recognize each other. Back in my old days, we had above and beyond recognition. Anybody that did something to help somebody else out, they could fill out this little above and beyond. We had a big board of above and beyonds. We announced it at our weekly meetings. We showed appreciation. We made it a deal. And all it took was a pat on the back. But sometimes you could give them a gift card or an extra day off, but at least public acknowledgement, if nothing else. That generally satisfies it. Show your appreciation through a direct email to them or a handwritten note. But do it frequently. Do it specifically and make it heartfelt. That is so meaningful to people. And I know a lot of companies do this, but I'm going to throw it in there. Have an annual, monthly, quarterly award ceremony. Have a monthly lunch where you recognize the employee of the month, give out some above and beyond gift cards, reward a team for some significant milestone. Always be looking for ways to pat them on the back, especially when somebody's coming up with new ideas, innovation, where teams are really drawn together to achieve something. That's real leadership. And of course, there's monetary bonuses and incentives. I'm not a huge fan of that, but you can, when there's some kind of reward tied to some measurable goal or achievement, it'd be bonuses, profit sharing, stock options, just a lunch. Buy them a pizza. It was, I forget who the survey company was, but one of the most popular forms of recognition for employees was pizza. Something simple. In today's world, think about creating some flexible work arrangements. Now, that's sacrilegious to some people, but in today's culture, recognizing the importance of a work-life balance is a super valuable motivator. And when you got high performing employees, and you allow them to have more flexibility in their schedules, or maybe even additional paid time off, really valuable. And then baked into a lot of this is making sure that you have something to recognize teams, recognizing your entire teams, whether they completing projects, beating some KPIs, doing some outings, charitable outings, fun building outings. And the last I'll talk about is what I call just surprise and delight moments. Be spontaneous with your recognition. Surprise employees with impromptu rewards, like office treats or donuts or lunch or shout outs. It's really good to start every meeting with recognition. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming today. Let's start by, I want to recognize Jerry for this. I want to recognize Sonia. Great job doing that. When you're spontaneously recognizing people, it's building that bond. It's building that respect. It's building that ownership. If you're not doing that, if you're too business, you're too direct, you're too just get it done, that's a big driver that it's not my job. So let's wrap it up. Fostering a culture of ownership, teamwork, recognition within your team, your organization, it's not only essential, but it's very achievable. And I hope with some of the strategies, which I know work, that I've used personally, you put those in place, you'll have far less, if not zeroing out this that's not my job mentality. You'll create ownership. You'll create pride, commitment, but it comes from you. It comes from you. Think about all the things I shared with you today and measure your progress. Set a goal for yourself. Start kicking off some of these best practices and see if things don't start getting better real soon. I'm betting it will. And most of this is no cost, low cost, and of little effort other than a change of how you operate. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the Business Mechanic Show. If today's content resonates with you, then you're going to love what we have to offer. For those of you who are ready to take your business or personal career to the next level, we have an array of training and coaching services tailored just for you. From performance coaching designed to enhance your potential, to executive coaching that guides leaders to steer their ships towards greater success. Are you in sales management or looking to fortify your leadership acumen? Dive into our sales management training and coaching. Not only will it sharpen your strategies, but it will also provide you an ROI that's undeniable. Remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself and your team. For those seeking flexible learning options, we're excited to share our online and in-person management leadership classes. These aren't just your typical courses. They are meticulously crafted, ensuring that they align with your unique needs and aspirations. And the best part, prices start at just $47 per month, making top-tier coaching and training accessible for everyone. Your growth, both personally and professionally, can have a ripple effect, the one I call the transformational triangle of change. The skills you learn, the perspectives you gain, and the efficiencies you create can translate into increased revenues, more cohesive teams, and an enriched company culture. So why wait? The potential ROI on this investment isn't just in dollars, it's in the progressive future you're carving out for yourself and your organization. Thanks once again for tuning in, and remember, every business needs a tune-up every now and then. Let the Business Mechanic Show be your guide. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details on our programs and coaches. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Until next time, we're out of here.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot. We charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot. We charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.